Welcome back, everyone. We are back on these couches again. We just literally went over to the dashboard, hit stop recording, record again, and here we are going to talk about no contact because this came up at the very last second of our prior conversation, which was really special. We covered a lot of ground on two of our most deep and hard to see wounds of impatience and urgency and enoughness. But now, because the conversation naturally flowed there, we're going to talk about this trend of going no contact with family members or friends. And you brought this up to me probably like 2 weeks ago. And you were like, I went on YouTube and every video thumbnail I saw was about going no contact with family. And I just love to talk about that here today. Like, what stood out to you? What do you think? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's quite fascinating because, we've just on our personal development journey have gotten to the point where we have made it very clear to ourselves that we don't want to live a life full of obligation. We've seen generations in the past and just how they've been told to live. And it feels like every day, almost everything they do is coming from a place of I have to, I should to, I need to, whatever that may be. That's just not a life we want to live. And I feel one thing that a lot of millennials and Gen Zers are noticing now is that there is such a dissonance between whether it's generations or friend groups or family members to the point where it's very difficult to have any form of civilized conversation or just experience together that truly feels conducive for all parties. And so a lot of people are intentionally going no contact. And that could mean just ghosting and like not talking to, let's say, your cousin or your best friend from college or your, in some cases, mother or father, whatever that may be. And then other cases, whether it's ghosting, in other cases, like after a very intentional conversation of, we're not going to be talking anymore going forward, whether it was mutual or one party, whatever it may be, those conversations seem to be happening more and more nowadays. And I think overall, it's a good thing. I think overall, this was a long time coming.
Yeah.
For so many. That doesn't mean in all situations it's perfect and handled smoothly by any means. But in our own journeys, as we have kind of stepped away from friend groups, we've no longer prioritized, especially for me, proactively calling certain old friends or family members. Many are free to connect with me, but I just don't want to put an effort to always be the one initiating things as our life has just gotten so busy. And also we just feel like we live in complete different worlds. So we have in our own form had our own way of no contact. I don't feel it's been as abrasive, I guess, as some other things I'm hearing other people do or hard. I think we're always open to conversations within a reasonable amount with people. But it's definitely, I think, a new trend that is going to keep on resurfacing as so much of the world feels as if it's splitting.
Yeah.
It feels as if from a lot of people we used to know, we literally live in a different reality. They deeply believe the world will be ending very soon, as if it's or not, if it's already pretty much dead, right? And they have no reason to live. They're constantly complaining, pessimistic. There's no real sense of happiness and joy, wanting to do better in their own life or optimism. And those people see the world through a place where all they can see is fear and threats that re-invoke that belief system they have, where we live in the complete opposite of that. And there reaches a point where those two realities are so different that they're no longer in contact with each other. So that's just happening a lot between, I don't know a single family that hasn't experienced it to some extent, at least with one family member nowadays. And again, I wish this wasn't the case. I wish everyone could just get along and sing Kumbaya forever. But people have very different realities and very different life choices. And it's going to put them on complete different paths. And so if like you imagine like a cruise ship going the ocean, just like a slight degree turn within a day, you're on the complete other side of the ocean, it feels.
Yeah.
And that's just what has taken place over all different types of relationships over the past, especially during these times of so much separation and controversy, it feels.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting. It speaks to this unique period of time where people can only do this because we've evolved to the point where you don't need your family to survive. So if we think about this from like a macro perspective, because, 50, 60 years ago, no one's going no contact with their family. They literally needed their family to survive. And that's what the relationship felt like. And Cam and I have watched a lot of interesting kind of like heavy hitter, like everybody universally loves them movies recently. And one of them that really stands out whenever we talk about this is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And I think that movie really shows what a deeply entrenched, codependent, unhealthy, but like loving. So that's where it's kind of unique because it's not like there's an absence of love. There is a lot of love, but the love looks like control. And I think that that's what the family unit has been for the last like 50 to 100 years. There could be love there. Sometimes there's not even love there. It's just control. But it's like I need you to be this certain way as my child in order to further our family line. It's a primal instinct. It's I need you to get this certain job so that our family looks good, so that you can get a suitable marriage prospect, so that you can have kids, and then we can continue this show going on forever. And it's coming from a deeply primal place, which makes sense. However, we've evolved to the point where the children of these parents who have outdated views around like what familial bonds actually are like, a lot of these people are saying, I don't even want to have kids. So then what? It's a checkmate. It's like a lot of the people go in contact with like people saying, I don't want to bring a child into this world, given everything going on. It's like that Venn diagram, like there's parts of that very much overlapping. So when you take away the primal instinct that has been there for pretty much forever, the only reason you would be in contact with anyone is out of enjoyment. Like once you scale Maslow's hierarchy of needs or the map of consciousness, whatever you want to look at, once you go past survival as a child, thanks to your parents, of course, always be gratitude for them for giving you the opportunity to get to that point. Now you've actually set up a life as that parent to have that child go further. That's what everybody says. I want my kids to have better than I had. Well, now the kids have better than what you had. And now they have the freedom to choose whether they want to talk to you. And that's what I don't think anyone anticipated.
They've regained the power.
This is new. This is a whole new dynamic.
When you let them stand their own 2 feet, they may choose to walk away.
Oh, that's a bar right there.
Right? Isn't that the case? Like when adults, especially nowadays with the internet, the access to anyone to make money who truly wants to make money, because that's the currency we currently have to allow us to live by ourselves independently. With this now entire new wave of independence and sovereignty, we no longer need the past generations. We no longer need people we used to rely on, whether that was in grade school or in college, whatever that may be. All different friend groups, all different families, we can now justify in our life that our life will be better without them, especially when they're filled with complaining, some form of poverty mindset, limiting beliefs. Like we all know a group of people that it's like the saying they'll have, and especially in different countries, it's so prevalent, like tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah.
Or that's when the gets cut. Or the crabs in the barrel, to say the least, they'll pull you down. Like that is very much the mindset for the far majority of the world, and even in America to some extent, despite being the country that people think is the opposite of that, that still very much exists here, and making sure that people stay in their class, in their group, in their caste to some extent, even though it's not official and formal, that has always existed here. Yeah. And so when people want to try something different and they just feel like they're being whiplashed over and over again, punished for trying to be different. Now, when it's feasible to be different and they can bet on themselves more than ever, that's only going to lead to a divide. 100%. Now, it's so unique because we're in such an odd situation. I would say,
Why is
to
that?
where like we have a deep purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which like most people don't have.
Right.
And so they will continue to be knee deep in all these relationships they've ever had because it allows them to fill space.
And maybe that is their
And
purpose.
that is completely okay. They're a
Yeah.
fantastic, childhood friend. They're a fantastic cousin. They're a fantastic father. They're fantastic, whatever that may be. That's fantastic. That's their thing. What we've noticed too is like even people that we really enjoy, if we're spending all our time with you, it's off the mission.
Yes.
And so we're a little bit in our own category, to say the least, which I think is only really comparable to people that are truly like world leaders, I'd say. Like no one is trying to ask themselves, my friend who's now the president of the United States, why can't he or she hang out with me? You know, it's like there's an obvious dynamic of like they're focusing on more important things, right? So we're going through that stage right now where we are focusing on more important things that people are trying to now get used to the fact they don't have as much access to us as before.
Yes.
And so that's been a lot of our no contact, I would say the most extent. There's been some where it's been very directly, oh no, you've actually been a nuisance to my life. You actually do not want me to succeed. And there is clear evidence why that's the case. Or just simply like the energy is just off. Like the direction I'm going on and the direction you're going on, it feels like one is becoming more and more alive and one is slowly dying. And that's just a path I don't want to go down. So that's really what I feel as if has been our perspective on it.
Yeah.
Because the increased importance of our time as we begin to, scale a worldwide movement now and do so many of the things that we feel is only the tip of the iceberg of what we will become, has really made us on our own island to some extent.
Yeah.
Which has led to some extent no contact to most. That being said, for the average person, this is also very prevalent right now, just for the reason of their ideology oftentimes being so conflicting with someone else's.
Yeah. And it's funny because what comes to my mind is a couple years ago, Alex Hormozy made this video where he's like, I don't go home for the holidays. And I remember like so many people flamed his ass over that. And they were like, how dare he? Like, he doesn't realize what really matters in life and all this stuff. And I remember just like looking at that and thinking like, interesting. And, years fast forward now that we're sitting here and I'm like, I get it. Like, I get what he was saying. What he's saying is like, when you're living for something bigger than yourself, which anyone can do, like purpose isn't like exclusive. Like you don't apply like it's Harvard or something. It's like you can through experimentation, through action, like we talked about in our episode on purpose. Highly recommend listening to that if you haven't. Through going out and doing things that interest you, that excite you, that call to you, your purpose will reveal itself to you. That's exactly what Cam and I did. And that's why we're able to be sitting here saying like, when you find your purpose, you're on like a one-track train and you're just going in the direction. And the thing on the side of the track, the little city, the little detour, the little thing has to be so attractive to stop the train. Exactly. Like you're not going to stop the train for like, a little restaurant that has like a little beaver statue in front of it. And like you're going to stop the train for like a beautiful mountain that is just breathtaking and it makes you feel alive and it fuels you and it actually makes you want to get back on the train with renewed energy. So it feels like that. It's like, and I think so few people can relate to this. So it's seen almost as negative or like we're being petty or like, why aren't you talking to me anymore? And it's not even like that. It's just like, I'm on a train. The train's moving 100 miles per hour plus, and I'm loving every second of it. And I wake up every day and I just make so much progress on connecting the world and literally bringing people together and getting all these applications for people who want to host a walk and having these conversations with you and cuddling and having this most amazing time and living in heaven on earth. And it has to be such an attractive detour that really feels like after this is going to be so good that I'm going to get back on that train and I can go even 10x faster.
Yeah, and there's some nuances I really want to point out because especially with Hollywood, right? They've made it very clear, this narrative of if you put your career first or something like that, you're going to regret it. And to
Oh,
some
yeah.
extent, I agree. Because most people are unconsciously creating their life around something that actually doesn't matter.
Well, career does not equal purpose.
100%.
Yeah,
That's the
that's the
nuance there.
distinction.
So like the career, let's say you're trying to start some military industrial complex, thing that's probably not doing its best in the world, but you're trying to make a shit ton of money and you work 80 to 100-hour weeks every week and you neglect your kids and do all this. Yes, you are
Yeah.
more likely going to regret it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're at this level and may never be, but if you're Abraham Lincoln and you're genuinely trying to unite the entire country, the South and the North, to come together for a peace treaty, that is what you are waking up every single day to do. I'm going to assume he's not going to regret missing his nephew's 7th birthday party.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's exactly what you're saying with the train analogy. It's like the small things that may mean a lot to your nephew's father, so your brother or sister, whatever that may be, it may mean a lot to them, and that's their big thing. But it doesn't need to be yours. That's where obligation comes in. It may be a big deal for someone else that you love, but that doesn't mean that it's now a big deal for you. And when you try to act like it is when it isn't, that is when obligation comes in. And obligation only breeds resentment. And that's, another great example, because when you have such a large purpose, the small things feel small. And they don't match the equation in your head of, is this actually worth my energy? Because if you give all those little things energy, the only thing you sacrifice is the one thing you've always wanted. So that is the, I guess, 5D chess game that we've been playing a lot recently, which is very different from what most people choose to experience. But that's been our lifestyle, and I think it will only continue. I think we'll only get more and more ruthless with our time.
Yeah.
As things grow, and there are going to be a group of people that don't like that because they got accustomed to having a certain level of access to us. Now they don't. One thing that I remember, I had a client not too long ago, and he, a few years ago, wanted to reconnect his family quite a bit more, right? And so he said, I'm going to start it. My brother, my mother, my father, we're all going to hop on a Zoom call every Sunday evening at 6 p.m. And I think a lot of families have this. And I think genuinely it's a fantastic thing. It's really, really good for families to stay together in that way. But it got to the point a few years later, the event that he set up, he recognized that, let's say, of the month, so 4 occasions where the family met, at least one of those times he did not want to go. And some months it was all 4 of those times he did not want to go. He was, Sunday morning would come around, Sunday afternoon would come around, and he'd be like, oh, fuck, got the call tonight, whatever it would be. Even though the week prior, he really enjoyed it. But it may not be the right time for us. It may not be the right day. And so it got to the point where he realized, oh, I'm not doing this out of obligation. And we learned very quickly that obligation was breeding resentment towards every member of his family.
Wow. So he discovered that?
He discovered that, exactly.
Wow. What did he do?
Well, at the current point, he realized that, oh, I got to end this thing. And which is a difficult thing to do, because now he's in a predicament of, well, more resentment is growing. And if I continue, now that I'm aware of this, to not do it, I'll probably only grow more and more resentment, which means the relationship will unconsciously become worse between myself and them. I don't want that. But the idea of saying to them, hey guys, I know I set up this container a few years ago, but now it doesn't really feel kind of conducive. I would love for us just to kind of call and chat when it feels right, is something that a lot of people aren't ready to say. And so they feel kind of stuck. And that example is the same for so many other things. Whether it's like a friends group from college that once a year goes to Vegas or does a trip to Colorado, whatever, or literally your job, like the entirety of what you do for a living.
Right.
Like to the utmost extent,
yeah,
it feels like a deep obligation where you want to and can do something better with your time that is more conducive for you, but you feel as if you owe a favor to someone else, or you feel as if I made this commitment, I started this, I must see this through. But it's like, to what end? When does that end? When everyone dies in that Zoom chat? Is that really when we're ending? Are we keeping it for then?
Right.
Like when does it end? And so
Yes.
sadly, so many people have stacked up obligation after obligation after obligation after obligation, where their whole life is just that. And it gets to the point where someone in the family is just like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to feel like I have to go to this family gathering every so often. I don't want to feel like I have to go to this thing just because, or whatever it may be, just because you would have your feelings hurt if I don't go.
Right.
And there's a group of people that still live in obligation town. And then there is now more than ever a group of people that realize they don't have to live in that town anymore. And so sometimes physically, literally, they move out of that town.
They move away.
Or at least symbolically
Which
in their
usually
energy.
manifests physically by
100%.
them moving away.
Out of the small town, and just the old saying and expression is in that way. But that's pretty much what's happening. It's people still living in obligation town, and those realizing they don't want to do that anymore.
Wow.
Now, there's other things where, one votes red, one votes blue, and they can't stand the other person can never think that way. And they're like, I can't even, fathom talking to Aunt Deborah again, whatever it may be. Like that also exists where it's more politically motivated. That's also coming from a place of ideology and how you see the world. This is a very different version of that, a more rooted version in that, in terms of obligation town and choosing not to do that anymore. That's very much in play.
Yeah.
There's also, families are all people, and everyone has a family for the most part. And people have done shitty things. And oftentimes people have now finally had the courage to stand up for themselves towards, let's say, relationship dynamics where their parents didn't treat them well as a kid, or their friends never treat them well, or whatever. They finally have the courage to speak with their feet for the most part, walk the walk, as in walk away from those people that they never could have done before. And so a lot of that is just manifesting right now in society that's leading to families dividing.
Yeah.
And that's not always a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's a sign that humanity is evolving.
Yeah.
Like humanity had to get to the point where it did not need the family unit to survive. Like that's actually a celebration milestone in my view. Like from a
100%.
macro lens, like that's incredible. Like we have enough people out of survival that people have the space to think, what is obligation? Or am I doing? It's like there's a bunch of people who were sleepwalking through obligation who are now waking up.
Yes.
They're like, why am I here? I don't even like this. It's like, I feel like in mass, people are just like waking up out of the sleepwalk and they're like, if I don't like this, why do I go? I don't have to go. I'm not going to go. And then that's the arc. And then you never see him again. And it's like good for them, honestly. But I also want to bring back something from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, because I think this is so real. So in that family, there was this scene where she wants to go to college to learn like how to work with computers. And he basically, like her dad, like does not want her to go to college.
Because she's living in the house currently.
Yes.
And also
and working in the
lead
family
person
restaurant.
at the family restaurant, exactly, that he runs.
And working in the family restaurant. And so he's like, crying. Why are you trying to leave me?
It's like
That's
a kid.
so real. Why are you trying to leave me? Don't you love me? Don't you love being here with us? And it was such a visceral scene. Like that scene comes to me, just floats to my awareness sometimes. And I'm like, that is what the older generations are feeling. And it's nothing to do with, do I love you, leaving you. It's really nothing to do with, it's about choosing myself. And if you can detangle that, the person who is moving on and saying, I want to just create a life, just like you always said, you wanted to give me everything you had and more. You've done it. You've gotten there. You've achieved the milestone. And now this is me. Like you said, I can stand on 2 feet and I can choose to walk in whatever direction I want. That's true empowerment. And then this is the kicker. In that movie, they had to manipulate the father into thinking it was his idea that she went to college to help another family member. That's the only way he would agree to it, is that, oh, you need help with computers in your family shop? Well, then you can go to college and then you'll work, because then they'll stay in the family, right?
Yes.
And so when you look at these small little sneaky things, so many older family members are unconsciously sabotaging the growth of their children.
Exactly.
And that is very hard energy to be around. Because the second you are a child of someone who doesn't even realize it's happening, this is the kind of the wildest part of it. They don't wake up every day saying, I'm going to sabotage my child so they stay with me forever. But it comes through in how they act. It comes through in their actions.
Exactly.
And I feel like it's that energy of the crabs in the bucket, trying to pull down the crab that's rising out of the bucket, almost out. Nope, pulling them back down. That is how people feel around their family right now. Because the family, the older generations are kind of entrenched in this old mindset around family needs to stick together. Reputation is everything. We got to look perfect from the outside, keeping up with the Joneses. The family has to look a certain way. Control issues. I need my child to be a success or else I'm embarrassed. All of these old programming that were so alive for that generation. Now the children are like, okay, I walked through this life that you planned out very meticulously for me. It worked. And now I'm going to keep walking. And it's in that critical juncture. Like if the parent was genuinely supportive and, this is the kind of key, unconditionally loving and accepting of whatever path the child wanted to walk. And now we hear these words thrown around a lot, but few people actually embody this. If you truly unconditionally, that means no conditions on it. They don't have to be a certain way. It doesn't have to look a certain way. They don't have to call you a certain amount of times a month. They don't have to do anything specific. And you are happy as a clam. You are content.
That is unconditional love.
That's unconditional love.
But if you can't love them from a distance, you don't unconditionally love them.
Exactly.
Now you can love someone, most definitely. Like I love a lot of people, but I don't unconditionally love them until they can walk away and that love stays the same. Most people, most families, most friends, most everything, that love is contingent on the access you have to that person.
Ooh, say more.
So if they contact you a certain amount, oftentimes, now for some it's every day, sometimes it's live together, whatever it may be. Sometimes it's once a month or once a year. You would come for my birthday, whatever it may be. There's a cadence to that love that you feel as if is a requirement for it. And then also how you're going to treat each other. Like, you love me and I can feel that, but just don't bring up this obvious blemish or character flaw that's ruining my life.
Right.
Just don't bring up this. Don't talk about that. And especially for parents to children right now, I love you, but also go to law school.
Right.
Go to med school.
Right.
It's like, I love you and I'm going to pay
You
for
don't
your
call me
college.
enough.
I'm going to pay for your college,
Right.
but you're going to major in this.
Right.
I'm going to pay for your college because it's right down the street.
Right.
It's like there's a nuance, but oftentimes a lot of doing to people you love is a form of control.
Yes.
Because that person is relying on that child for their own self-worth. Now, sometimes this could be a status game, right? Like you need that child to be successful and get that certain job after getting a certain degree and having a certain house and finding a certain, ethnicity of a wife or whatever that may be from other good family. Like you need them to have that status for you to feel okay, for you to feel like your life has been worth it. And so you're delegating your own self-love onto others through force and control. That's making them actually begin to hate themselves and hate you.
Dead Poet Society.
100%.
That's exactly what
That's
that
a
was.
great movie. That's something we just watched where there was the main character in Dead Poet Society who was having a ball, probably starting this club.
He's at a boarding school.
At a boarding school.
It's a high school. It's very hoity-toity, like peak Massachusetts energy. And like it's like oddly kind of like vaguely religious and everyone wears uniforms and it's very strict. And it's like, this is a preparatory institution. Everyone goes to the Ivies. And then there's this main character. Go ahead and say the rest.
The main character who is running the Dead Poet Society, who is very much inspired by his new professor at that school, to pretty much sneak out with a bunch of his really good friends in the middle of the night to this cave area right by the school. And they just read old poems to each other.
Yeah.
And in the movie, it feels like such a rebellion. It feels, but honestly, so amazing, and what gives them the ability to live. But then, inevitably, when the school finds out, and when the parents find out, the parents of that main character, who was super strict and said multiple times, is like, I don't have or didn't have the opportunities you have, so you must do this. You must, for this case, you must go to law school. And the kid who wants to be an actor, who wants to do his thing, also is getting great grades and also still planning to go to law school, wanted to do other things also.
He wanted to act.
Because that was not part of not the child's plan, but the parent's plan. The parent did everything he possibly could to metaphorically and also physically slap the kid back into place.
Yeah.
And it caused so much pain and turmoil that the kid didn't even feel like he was living his own life, that he was a slave to his parent. He was a slave to the system, that he committed suicide.
Yeah.
That he killed himself.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, there's been a sharp increase in that type of action being taken amongst a lot of young people. But there isn't enough awareness from the people around them to recognize that to some extent, the external pressure that they're putting upon these people is part, not maybe all, but part of the reason why extreme measures like that are taken on someone's life.
Yeah.
And it's quite sad, but I deeply believe it is like the most surefire path to regretting your life is following someone else's directions.
Or forcing someone to follow your directions.
Yes.
Both lead to the biggest regrets. And even in that movie, what was so just human nature at its core to me was that the parents, even though it was very obvious that he had taken his own life because of a conversation that happened with them an hour or two before, and it could not be more obvious because they were going to send him off to a military boarding school because he acted in a play. And he just couldn't take it anymore, and he had to get out of there. And he felt like he was in a prison sentence. The parents did everything in their power to get the professor fired and blamed for his death because they did not want to take responsibility for co-creating that situation. And it's like nothing happens in a silo. Nothing happens in a void where it's like this person just going about their life and then, oh, how did this happen? It's like we need to like really open our eyes to how anyone who was playing a primary role in this person's life played a role in this. If you played a role in their life, you played a role in that decision. It's a very hard thing because I don't mean this in every case, but in that specific case, when you are very controlling and you're enforcing your way, your worldview, and you need someone to be a certain way for you to be okay, and there's no wiggle room, and you're a drill sergeant, which I've come across a lot of parents who were like this, especially when back home, when I was growing up, I had so many parents around me. I went to college preparatory schools as well, who were like that. And you could just feel that like the child was afraid to make one wrong move, have one hair out of a place, to, have their shirt untucked. It was like all of this was like code red. And if you're either living that life as somebody who's having rules forced upon them, or you're forcing the rules upon the other person, their child, it's time to like really look at yourself and say, if someone doesn't want to talk to you, why?
Why?
Like, can we just like ask that question? It's like, what about instead of making it about the other person? Because Cam and I talk about this a lot, actually. We noticed that this isn't having to do with no contact when it comes to parents, but more so friends, where we are so busy, and Cam decided to stop reaching out to people out of obligation. So he stopped reaching out to like 90% of people and then didn't hear from any of those people. So it was his initiation and his effort that was keeping these like lackluster relationships like on life support, basically. And the second he stopped was the second they stopped reaching out. They weren't even reaching out, but he would hear in roundabout ways that they're complaining to other people about why he doesn't reach out to them. And I just think that's very interesting to observe that there's not only like, oh, well, why isn't he reaching out to me? Is he okay? Like, what's wrong with him? Is he depressed? There's always this tendency to blame the other person. Cam isn't reaching out to me, therefore he must be depressed. Therefore he must be in a bad place. Therefore he must be going through something. And that's just not, sometimes it's true, but that cannot be seen as the only truth. We need to open our mind to ask ourselves, am I playing any role in this? Is there any part of it that might involve me? A relationship is not just 100% the other person's actions and you're just there. It's a 50-50 co-creation. And so I feel like this no contact wave is really a gift to be able to have people look more critically at, if you want to talk to someone and they don't really express an interest in talking to you, can we look at that more deeply? It's 100%. A great opportunity.
And I look at no contact. Imagine like you're a parent of a child.
Right.
Right. And you hand the child a flashlight, like 5 years old. Right. Like, go explore, the sun's going down. You can look at the flashlight, you look at things, whatever. It's an amazing opportunity. But immediately when you hand that kid the flashlight, they immediately start banging other kids' heads on the flashlight. They bang the flashlight on people's heads and they hit it on themselves. It's like they use it as a tool and a weapon. And then the parent takes away the flashlight. No more. You can't use it. And then a few weeks later, it's like, all right, let's try again. And they keep on doing the same thing, same abusive behavior. The parent's like, no more. Try again. After a certain point, the parent's like, I can't give you the flashlight at all. That's what no contact is.
Oof.
That's what we've learned through our own experiences, that when someone is acting that way, your energy is the only currency you have. It is the only resource you have that they want, that only you control.
Wow.
And it dictates the quality of your life, because it is your time, it is your love, it is your energy, whatever it might be. And there reaches a certain point of abuse, whether it's towards yourself, like they're abusing you, or them towards themselves. Like, let's just say severe drug addicts. That's very self-repressed, so it's more about them ruining their life and not the life of people around them. There still reaches a point where everyone around them, it's in their best interest to remove access to themselves, to not try to keep on comforting or whatever it may be to make it work.
Enabling,
exactly. They got to remove themselves altogether to make that happen. And that is what I feel like we're learning through this no contact, is that people are realizing that they must take away the one thing that they're currently still giving access to. Because if they keep on getting access to the flashlight, they're never going to learn.
Ooh.
It takes an extended period of time without the flashlight and to listen and be like, we use this only for this reason. And we must be respectful of our boundaries, of other people. It takes that level of really understanding why no contact is happening. It's a tool for people to finally respect how others want to be treated. Once we see it as that, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And once we have the self-awareness to realize that's what's happening, that is when we can actually change for the better.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing to think about, because the younger generations, of which we are a part, of course, we've had a lot of space, and we've taken advantage of that space to introspect and to go to different forms of therapy. And you led men's circles, you attended men's circles. I attended a tremendous amount of things, women's circles, talk therapy, somatic therapy. I mean, Cam and I have done the gamut. And I think what happens is, when the younger generations, and some people in the older generations too, actually did take advantage of the space in the same way. And that's super awesome. And it's like, congratulations, because dang, you're really cool for doing that. But I think a lot of young people got to a point where they started to do enough inner work to where they really value themselves. They understand that their energy is their most valuable asset, and that whatever they put their focus on expands. Whatever they put their focus on is what makes up the quality of their life. And so when you have the gift of space to be able to do enough inner work to be like, wow, I get to choose my experience. I get to be a conscious, creator of my life. Anyone who is not compatible with making you feel good about yourself, making you feel loved or lovable, making you feel enough or worthy exactly as you are, or simply able to just be yourself at the base level, being able to exist exactly as you are without being wrong or made to be, oh, you need to do this, or you should do this, or you should do this, you should be any other way but what you are. Oh, you shouldn't rest that much. Oh, you should stop eating that much. Oh, you should lose some weight. It always some kind of goal of wanting you to be some way that you're not. And when you are given the gift, I think of the younger generations, of being able to finally love yourself. Like, we were given the gift of space that allowed a lot of us to start a self-love journey. And on that journey, you're really able to look at your whole life critically and say, who doesn't make me feel loved? And do I want to be around that person? Because that's not loving myself. Me filling my life or my time or my phone calls with people who don't make me feel okay to be who I am, it's just not respecting of myself and the journey I took to get to this point to enjoy my life.
Exactly.
And I feel like that is the undercurrent of all of it.
And we have so much compassion for those that are spewing should statements and have to statements, which are oftentimes the older generations, but also just friends that are our age, whatever they may be.
Right.
They are doing that to others because they don't feel whole within.
Right.
They don't have the self-love within, and so they match that same level of unself-love to everyone around them.
Yeah.
So if someone's always complaining about everything, it's because they hate themselves. They're complaining about who they are as a person all the time. It's just a direct mirror. And so we can have compassion for that person, and we can have unconditional love for them. But like I've said over and over again, unconditional love does not equal unconditional access. That true love is oftentimes love from a distance, because you are like, I don't need you to change. I don't need you to, not say this to me or not say that to me. If you want to, comment on my weight, you want to comment on this, whatever, you can. But I'm deciding not to put up with that anymore.
Right. I'm not available for that.
That's why I'm walking away. Because if we're trying to stay and change them, but don't talk to me that way, don't say that again, or try to say some mean comment back, whatever it is, that's just starting a war at their vibration, at their lower vibration. But if we walk away, we step into our power and we release and let go of energy that was in our awareness that will no longer hold us down. And so, again, no contact, I think, makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. It is 100% on a situation by situation basis, but it's definitely much needed. And one thing that came to me as you were speaking was, every generation, as you mentioned before, wants better for the next generation. But sometimes it's hard to face what having it better actually looks like. Because having it better nowadays looks like boundaries. It looks like not needing to follow the family plan, not needing out of obligation to attend that thing for the friend or whatever it may be. Having it better off than past generations is someone leading a life that is truly in their power, truly in their purpose, not needing to be any other type of way for other people. And those other people may not always like that. So it's definitely bittersweet, to say the least, for those to realize that they've spent their whole life saying, I want better for my kids. But then the kids finally get better to the point where they're living in two different realities. And at this current moment in time, which I guarantee is the case for the far, far, far majority of no contact cases, is that this is a temporary situation. And if that person from the past that the other decided to walk away from somehow was able to gain the self-awareness to understand what was happening and to love themselves enough to step into their own power and not be spewing the should haves, the could haves, or whatever it would have been to that person who walked away, and equal that playing field again, that is the highest chance likelihood of that relationship being not only repaired, but entering a new chapter that serves everyone involved.
Wow. Yeah, I feel very interested to see how this is going to take shape over the next few years, because I see this happening more, not less, much more. And I think, Cam and I have talked about this before, but it always speaks to me in these cases, is that consequences are necessary for people to understand what is and is not acceptable. Cam and I have talked about this when it comes to people at our events. If you come and act a fool and we don't say anything, then you're just going to come and acting a fool. But you come and act a fool, you will be talked to, and you probably will never come again, because the impact of the consequence is powerful. And it's the same thing, like the kid with the flashlight analogy. If you just let that kid keep running around and hitting people with the flashlight, that kid never learns. That kid will never have a moment of awareness to say, man, I really want to play with that flashlight. I guess I'm not going to bonk someone on the head with it.
Exactly.
That's a powerful moment. That's how everyone learns. That's how I learned. Like in the episode last time where I was talking about someone pulling away from me and finally understanding years later, it was because my panicked emotions were really hard to be around. She gave me the gift of a consequence that I didn't have the eyes or ears to understand back then, that I now get to understand. And now I have the opportunity to heal how I am showing up, to take responsibility for, wow, back then I kind of felt like a victim. I kind of felt like, how dare they do this? And not anything intense, because I actually really had a lot of love for that person. I was more sad. And I think I was more like, wow, that just sucks. What did I do? I was more confused. And I've always been more of an inward blamer than an outward blamer. Cam and I call this repressive versus reactive. So do you have a repressive, oh, wow, what did I do? Man, that's sad. Did I do something? Oh, man, I did something wrong. Or it's like, fuck that person. They're a bitch. They don't even deserve me. It's like you're either one or the other, and that's okay. And so I had a very repressive reaction to it, but I was still taking a victim stance. I took it to mean wow, that's so sad that this person pulled away from me. What did I do? And that's victim consciousness right there.
Because you're asking, why did that to me?
Right.
Any type of example that ends in why did that to me is a victim statement.
Exactly.
Which it's okay if that's the first level of awareness that you have, but to grow out of that pattern, you must no longer be the victim.
Yes.
And it takes us all realizing oftentimes that we at one time, no matter how great we may think we are now, we at one time were the kid abusing the flashlight in some way.
100%.
And we were banging on top of
That's how
others
we
and on top of
learn.
ourselves. Exactly.
Yeah, that's how kids
and so
learn.
we were the lesson for others, and then others were the lesson for ourselves. And when you look at it that way, hopefully you're able to release a part, just like we talked in the last episode, that has an immense amount of self-judgment for causing harm to others in some way.
Yeah.
But I really feel as if that is the whole reason for this movement.
Yeah.
It is the fastest way to self-reflection.
Yeah. It's consequences speak volumes. And whether it's in, community where you act a fool and then someone talks to you, or it's in dating where, you go on a date and somebody insults you, I would just get up and leave immediately. If that ever happened to me, and I used to see these TikToks of women who would be going on dates and they'd sit down and the first thing out of the guy's mouth was like, you don't look like your pictures. If that ever happened to me, I would say, thank you so much. I'm going to go and just get up and leave. I have no interest in my presence being devalued in that way. So we're going nowhere good from this point. And instead of hanging on the roller coaster, now trying to get you to see my worth, which I think is the gut reaction, I'm just going to choose myself and I'm going to walk away. So I'm using these examples because it's not just in familial relationships. It's in every kind of relationship, community, romantic, friendship, family. Anytime there's two people coming together, The only thing that really talks that talk is a consequence. Is a, hey, you did this. It did not feel good to me. I will not be doing this going forward. I am not available for this kind of interaction going forward. Whoa. But most people aren't really willing to say that, which is why, now that's a whole nother conversation, no contact's very extreme. That I feel is because it's easier to cut someone off than it is to say what I just said.
To confront them.
Yeah.
Exactly. For confrontation, 100%.
Yeah, because
they
you have to tell the truth.
They have to tell the truth, and you fear
Right.
the immediate reaction they're going to have, be it how unpredictable it may be.
And you assume their reaction.
You always assume the worst oftentimes
that it's
because
gonna
you're afraid of them.
You're afraid. And there's no judgment for this, but it is, I mean, I have a lot of experience with this, honestly. I used to love cutting people off because it's way easier. You don't have to have a conversation. You don't have to communicate. You can just disappear off the face of the earth and say, no, I deserve better than this. Bye. But that, to me, there's an opportunity for repair. Not always, but in a lot of cases, honestly, I would say always. There would always be an opportunity to try to speak truth. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in those cases, I think there's a lot of different layers to this no contact thing. There's like the evolutionary perspective. There's the older generations not being able to understand that better might mean not living a life where they're very involved. There's people feeling like they need to choose themselves. They need space. They're also healing from patterns they picked up from their parents, which makes it very difficult to talk to them because they're just thrown back into that world. There's so many layers to this. So many layers to this. Both sides seeing it themselves as a victim, whether you're the person who did the cutting off or you got cut off. I mean, endless layers of control. But I feel like what it comes down to, one of the subtlest layers of all, is that, as Kim and I have talked about many times, because we see this in our experiment for human connection, and that literally happens every single week when strangers come together and walk 5 miles together in 10 cities now, the indirectness and the inability, because these skills have atrophied, to just tell the truth because we're afraid of the reaction, is the current underneath all of these intellectual layers. Underneath all of those layers is a somatic fear that if we speak the truth and we set a boundary and we say how we want things to be, that we're going to be harmed, or that some worst case scenario thing is going to come to play. And it's that inability of people to speak the truth, to acknowledge, like, yeah, this is the reason I'm doing this, calmly. That all of the above reasons are taking place. We're missing each other because we're not actually telling the deepest truth.
100%.
And we don't know how.
And the sad news is we always blame it on one situation. You know, if there's been a conflict, something unsettling between, let's say, two brothers, right? And when it reaches a point where something must be said, it's always like, why weren't you able to make it to my birthday party?
Right.
It's always about a situation. It's always, why didn't you call during this time in this way? It's not about that one situation. It never has been, never will be. If there's a valid excuse for not being there, whatever, everyone would be like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. No, whatever. It's the energy behind it that everyone knows they're avoiding.
Yes.
But other than saying like the real underlying thing, we blame it on the one occasion where something didn't go as planned.
Because it's logical and it hurts less.
Exactly.
It hurts less to bring a like, why didn't you call me? Because then you can actually stay on the layers above the problem and go back and forth and bicker and have nothing get resolved. Because it's actually a lot more painful to say the truth, which is, it really hurt my feelings. And I feel very disconnected from you. And I don't feel good being around you right now. It's so much harder to say that than it is to say, why didn't you call me on my birthday?
It's especially harder to ask the question.
Yeah.
To be the person noticing that someone else is beginning to walk away. And you don't know how to ask what's going on.
Right.
that isn't the most direct way. Because if you ask what is the most direct way, you'd be like, hey, I've noticed that you've been connecting with me much less. Why is that?
Mm-hmm.
That line, that very simple line, is the most direct thing to say and is also the deepest fear of the person that's being walked away from. Because that is an open book for anything, any of their fears to be listed right there.
Wow.
And so other than saying that deepest thing, we say a few things above. Why didn't you act this way at this time? Why is this happening this way? Why don't you call me immediately here? What? All those other things. Because that person that's being walked away from, they unconsciously know they're being walked away from because of their behavior. But their nervous system cannot yet handle the truth.
Yeah. Because it would be consequence.
It'd be a consequence.
That they would then be, from that moment on, because that's what the truth does. The truth amazes me. From the moment after you say the truth, nothing is the same.
Exactly.
So basically, you have this situation on life support where neither party is happy, but neither party wants to say the truth. And it's just dragging on and on and on. And one party's probably like not really like caring that much, and the other party's like deeply anxious, and like it's usually the person who's like kind of getting above the fog and having a great time, and then the person who's like, you're leaving me, all these things. The life support that keeps that relationship alive is these small moments of maintenance, like we were talking about the other day.
Text
it's
every few days.
These small little drip feeds, you know, just because you can sense the anxiety, so you just send a little drip feed. But in reality, it's like, unless the person who senses something is wrong has the courage to say, I noticed this, what's going on, and allows space for that answer. That's the hardest part, because the person who is pulling away, they don't want to just come out and say, hey, I'm pulling away from you because XYZ. Because, and Cam and I talk about this all the time because it's so relevant in the work we do with communities, our friendships, and even our families. It's relevant in every area of our life. We always ask ourselves, the person who is pulling away, is it on them to send the message saying, hello, you may have noticed that I am pulling away. Let me know if you want to talk about it. Or is it on the person who is being pulled away from to say something, which they usually never do? And that is the eternal question. But as I'm sitting here in this moment, what feels true to me is that it is for the person being pulled away from's highest growth to transcend their own fear to ask the question.
Exactly.
And unless they do it, nothing will ever change.
Exactly.
And that's where I think no contact is happening.
You hit it right on the nose. That's
I
100%
think we freaking got it.
Because if the person walking away says the thing, they're meeting that other person where they're at, which is oftentimes a lower vibration, lower consciousness, which means more in the victim mindset. So immediately when that person who's rising is walking away and says, hey, I've realized this relationship hasn't been that conducive over the past few months, and you may be hearing from me less, or maybe even saying reasons why, whatever it may be. Immediately, the person, the lower consciousness, is going to start creating a victim story around it.
Yeah.
They're either going to be like you said, reactive, more than likely. Fuck him. Why is he doing that? Oh, he's a terrible person. He's not a real friend.
Right.
Real friends stick together, whatever it may be. They'll say all that. Or they'll be repressive and they'll be like, oh, I am a terrible person. Oh man, this is, they'll do all that.
Right.
But from a place of shame and guilt, and not actually look at it from an objective lens that it can actually improve and just reaffirm how much of a shitty person they really think they are. So it's a game where it kind of must come from the person being walked away from, because first they have to acknowledge it's happening, which is a big deal. That's a huge new level of awareness.
Huge deal.
And number two, it takes a level of courage, which is a much higher vibration than most are in, than 85% of the world is in, to have a conversation like that. And it takes even a higher vibration of willingness to be open to the idea of asking why.
to the answer of wherever you're asking.
Because it's different to say you've been stepping away from me versus you've been stepping away from me. Why is that?
Right.
Those are very different consciousness questions.
Those are.
But the higher consciousness question, the energy imprint behind the person being walked away from is able to say, the higher likelihood the person actually walking away not only will be able to tell them the truth because they can feel that person's ready for it, but also the highest chance of them actually being able to mend the situation right there to whatever is most compatible for those two people.
Yes, because if you are the person who is pulling away and you go out of your way to say what's going on, you know, hey, you may have noticed I'm talking to you less. And then maybe you don't have to give a reason, but I think a lot of people probably would try to give a reason. When I did it in the past, I actually wouldn't give a reason because I would like that allows them at least an opening to ask. So I'm going to give an example of this because it comes to me every single time. There was a woman who I was friends with. I met her online. We really clicked. She's an amazing person, has a great personality, super funny. Like we just clicked so well. And then over a course of like 6 months to a year of being friends with her, I noticed that I was incredibly anxious every time she texted me. Every time she texted me, my anxiety would go through the roof because she'd send like 30 text messages and they all were so urgent and they all were like, everything's going wrong, like me having to console her and like hype her up and stuff. And it was just really getting rough for me. And it was also making me feel very fearful around men and dating. And I actually like didn't date for quite a while because of that friendship. So it got to the point where like I just hit a wall with it and was like, I cannot continue having this person in my life because I could feel that if you like get a text from someone and your heart sinks, that's probably a good sign that like a boundary needs to be set.
The only reason why he texts back is from obligation.
Exactly. And that's what I started to feel as like a heart sinking feeling of like, oh God. But you know, when I see your name on my phone, I'm like, yay. And like, just pay attention to that. It tells you a lot. So I get to the point where I realize something needs to be said because I tried to slow fade. I tried to do what we're saying. And then she actually replied to my stories with like passive aggressive remarks. And it got to the point where she was like, I love how you can message all these people back, but not me, or something to that effect. Like, I love how you're like available for all these text messages, but you never text me back. And I was like, this feels like an opening. It just felt right. It felt right. It didn't feel it because she sent a couple. And then that one, something was just like, okay, this feels like an opening because it's more direct.
And it's less of her like actually ready to hear about it and more of you like, I'm done with this
I'm going to take this opportunity.
Let me tie the bow on this because this is no more.
And that's okay because I recognize that there's like things need closure. You know, when you do slow fade and somebody gets like passive aggressive and starts to say these things like, why you never talk to me anymore? Why do you have time for everyone but me? Anything like this, it's like it gets to a point where you just kind of reach a wall with it. I would have gotten to this point much sooner and I would have handled the situation differently. But in that situation, I remember I gave a very generic, more vague reason where I was basically just like, I realized that our friendship was making me incredibly anxious. And I'm trying to move in a different direction in my life. And I need to have less stress in my life. So I really appreciate you. And then in that moment, this is why I'm even bringing this up. No response. No response.
It's so much truth.
It's too much.
That they're like, oh my gosh, if I actually embrace what she just sent me, I'm going to have to sit with myself for a year.
And I said in that, this is the last part I said, if you want to talk about this more, call me anytime. Let me know. I would love the opportunity to explain more, to share more, to let you in to why this happened. And then no response at all. Just a red receipt. And so why I'm sharing this example is in this case, I was pulling away. There was passive aggressiveness that was coming at me. I took the opportunity to say a very brief thing that you were causing me, it was causing me anxiety to receive your text and I just needed space and I'm going in a different direction. I don't think we're in the same place right now. Please call me anytime. That level of truth was so much that it couldn't even, and has not to this day, that was 4 years ago. Has never followed up, has never asked, has never been like, hey, can we talk? Just gone. It's too much truth.
Yeah.
And so in those cases, why am I bringing this up? When this happens to you, especially if it's a pattern, you have two paths. You can either take that as an opportunity to self-reflect, like I did with my friend in college. Now, it took me a couple years, but I eventually got there to where I was like, wow, I get why that happened. Or you can play the victim in the situation and not look inward and just take it as a, oh, this is this person thing. And, oh, well, I'm just too much for them. And like, they can't handle me. Like, they can't handle my energy. And if they can't handle me, they can't be in my life. And you can say all those things, but you have the path. You have one path or another path, and you can choose. And if you choose the more empowering path, which is, wow, you know what? If this isn't the first time this has happened, this has happened more to me more than 3 times. What would happen if I opened myself up to the answer? What would happen if instead of ghosting the person, I said, yeah, I actually would really like to talk to you on the phone about it? That conversation would change your life if you let it. Change your life. So I know that's hard to say because it's not easy to have those conversations. And I think a lot of people like dang near like poo their pants thinking about those conversations. But those are the moments that will literally put a drop of elixir, like, I don't even know, like the strongest substance of the earth into your awareness and put you on an entirely new path that will rock your world in the best way. Like, it was those moments that got us to where we are.
It's like, the thing called suffering?
Yeah.
Solved.
Right.
Like, that's really it. It's like,
Right.
if you master all your relationships and truly are speaking your full authentic truth and embodying your highest self by choosing no obligation and only speaking to people that genuinely empower you and you empower them, that is how you get heaven on earth.
Exactly.
That's how you develop relationships, opportunities, everything you could ever possibly imagine in terms of financial success, romantic relationship success, connection success, everything to the maximum. But the sad news is with that is,
oh no, what's the sad news?
I think the reason why no contact isn't happening more often is because people are in fear that someone better isn't out there. Because if you knew that right behind that door was your dream friend group, and all you have to do is exit the room you're in, go down the hallway, and open that new door, if people genuinely believe that, they will very quickly have no contact, have these confronting conversations, and move on with their lives. But it's the fear that there isn't potentially people more aligned for them that keep them where they're at. But thankfully, I'm very grateful for us. Well, thankfully, we have each other.
Thank goodness.
But also, we've been able to attract such higher quality people in our lives. And this includes friends, this includes employees, this includes everything and everyone, because we chose to have boundaries, because we chose to realize that our energy is the most important thing that we have. And once we start honoring that and putting ourselves in situations that people can only honor that within us as we honor theirs, that's what's led to our life skyrocketing over the past few years.
I really enjoyed this conversation, baby.
Yeah, me too. We're at, an hour 10. Nice.
Look at us go. 2 in a row, baby.
Yeah.
I'm really happy we talked about this because it's, like you said, it's everywhere. And if you're someone out there who's contemplating making this move, we hope that what we talked about just gives you some food for thought, or maybe plant some seeds that will blossom in their own time. But we know it's not an easy conversation, but this is not going away anytime soon. I truly believe this is only going to become more ratcheted up, more increased. There's going to be more stories, more Oprah panels about both sides of the equation who are no contacted. And I honestly feel like at the end of this conversation, it's a sign that people are loving themselves and setting proper boundaries. I mean, let consequences speak where you don't want to anymore. Consequences and boundaries speak for you. And it's the most radical act of love. So I'm just so grateful. And thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you for going there. It was amazing. I
love talking to you about things like this. And if anything came up or anything resonated or anything sparked to your mind, or you have any questions or anything that you want us to dive more into, because we went into very many different threads as we usually do in our conversations, then just leave a comment and let us know. We love hearing what is on your heart, what is on your mind. Thankfully, we do host an event where people bring a topic of what's on their mind every single week. So we do have plenty to choose from there.
Theboardwalks.com if you don't know.
if you're, we're in more cities and increasing. So we might be where you're at right now, if that sounds like a good way to find a new friend group.
Exactly.
A good way to level up.
It's more aligned. Exactly.
People who are on your level exploring these things, especially if you love our conversations. But we're very grateful for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us for this beautiful conversation, and be gentle with yourself. We love you, and have a whimsical week. Bye,
Love
y'all.
Peace.
Bye.